Welcome to Classic Take, Season 3, Episode 19. The topic we'll discuss today is the end of Pennies and the coming of Mashiach. There's an interesting passage in the Gemara, Masechta Sanhedrin, Tzadik Zayin Amud Aleph. The Talmud says that Ein ben David ba asher tichle pruta min hakis. It brings a pasuk which says in Pashas Hazinu that Hashem will see, ki yira ki ozla siyad, Hashem will see that the hands, the strength, the power of the Jewish people is waning, is gone. Ve'efes asur va'azuv, they're lacking somebody that will support them, that will help them. And then the continuation of the verses speak about the fact that Hashem decides that since there's nobody that's the Jewish people, nobody wants to help them, they're at a point of rock bottom, so Hashem says He will redeem them. And one of the ways the Gemara interprets this verse is that Ozla Siyod means that the hand or the strength, the power is waning. The Gemara interprets it to mean that it's referring to a stage that Achetichla Pruta min hakis, that coins, a pruta means the minimal coin in Talmudic times is called a pruta, until the point that the pruta will be missing from the kis, from the purse. There won't be any money in the purse, which basically means that the Jewish people will be at a state of dire poverty. That's the literal meaning, which is what Ozla Siyod means. Their hand is weighing, their hand is gone, there's nothing in their hands are empty. And at that point, Hashem will take the Jewish people out of exile. Now, first of all, this begs for a question. I mean, it's what is the significance over here? First of all, what's the significance of the concept of dire poverty? Why specifically do the sages refer to this as shetichla pruta min hakis, that a coin won't be found in the purse? So in general, there are various interpretations, starting from basic, simple interpretations to more homiletic, to more kabbalistical, mystical interpretations. We will try to discuss some of them. And as we will see, there are various ways of understanding this. But just to begin with, one of the fundamental ideas that are discussed in the Zohar and other sources is that one of the primary afflictions of the time of exile is poverty. The Zohar actually says that Begalusa Basra, this last exile, so instead of death, Hashem gave the Jewish people poverty. Poverty is the tzara, the calamity of this exile, and unfortunately, I mean, this is many throughout the generations, the Jewish people have often reached the point that there was no money in their pockets. So, in general, exile is associated with poverty, with being left with nothing. But here we find that this idea of having nothing left in the purse, no money left, no coins left in the purse, is specifically related to the time of the redemption. Why is that? How does that relate to the redemption? So, there is, on a simple level, more of a level of pshat, of simple understanding, the Alshich translates the idea as follows. He says that money is a cause of strife, a cause of jealousy, a cause of hatred. When there's no money and everybody is in the same boat, so then the strife, the hatred, the animosity is gone. So he brings a verse. The verse says, "Kichinam nimkartem v'lo bekasef tigaelu," you were sold for nothing, and you will not be redeemed through money. So he interprets the words chinam, you were sold for nothing, for free. And in the homiletic way, it alludes to the idea of sinas chinam. We know that our sages tell us that the reason why the second temple was destroyed was because of sinas chinam. Sinas chinam basically means baseless hatred. Chinam means for free. It means something that has no reason, no cause. So chinam nimkartem, the verse says that the Jewish people were sold into exile for free, for no reason. So he interprets it to mean that they went into exile because of sinas chinam, because of baseless hatred. So the verse explains the source, the root for the exile. And then the verse continues, "V'lo bikasef tigaelu," you will not be redeemed through money. So he interprets the verse, again, a little bit not in the literal way of reading the words, but when you rearrange the words and the meaning of the words a little bit, he interprets the words to mean as follows. He says, "V'lo bikasef," when there won't be money, when you won't have any money, so then the chinam, the sinas chinam, the cause of baseless hatred, will be gone. So therefore, v'loi bekesef, and there won't be money, then tigo'elu, then you will be redeemed. So this is how he explains from a more, tying it into with Jewish history, with the causes that lead to the destruction, the things that lead to the redemption, that the lack of money in of itself is not a sign of redemption, but it's something that leads people, when there's no money and there's nothing to fight about, so they make peace with each other, and that leads to the coming of redemption. There is a explanation of the Tzemach Tzedek, the third Lubavitcher Rebbe, who explains in the Maimer Chassidus, he actually maybe a little similar but different from what the Alshich explains, and he discusses the purpose of afflictions. There's a verse that says, Kiner mitzvah v'Torah v'derech chayim teichachos musar. Mitzvah is compared to a lamp, Torah is compared to light, and the way of life is teichachos musar, which means rebuke, affliction, that the affliction that a person has leads him to life, to the way of life. So he explains at length one of the, there's obviously different meanings of this verse, but one of the practical applications of this verse, he explains as follows. He says a person by nature is always going somewhere. A person always has ambition. He always, let's say, even if a person is not aware of his ambitions, but he's a person, most people, at least healthy people, don't remain in the same spot. They're doing something, they're trying to get more, they're trying to go further. So when a person has money, when things are going good, so a person naturally seeks to perpetuate his current situation. He wants to get more money, he wants to become more successful, etc. Now what happens when there's a block that's placed, when his ambitions are no longer able to be achieved? So he becomes stagnant. There's something that's stopping him from moving further in the direction of success, of money, whatever it might be. So because a person by nature is a hoylech, he always goes somewheres. So if he's blocked, he has to just go backwards. He's not just going to stay in the same spot. It's going to cause him to retrace his steps and to try to find another path. So he says somebody that's involved in physicality, so he keeps on going in that direction as long as everything is going well. He's not necessarily going to think about anything spiritual, but anything deeper in life. So sometimes Hashem he makes a stop, a temporary stop to a person's success. And at that moment, the person, he has to go somewhere, he has to do something, he has an ambition, the ambition has to go somewhere. So he just retraces his steps, he tries to think deeper. What is the meaning of life? What is the purpose of everything anyway? And that brings him closer to Hashem. On a little bit of a deeper note, he explains a deeper layer, deeper dimension of this aspect. He says that sometimes a person is involved in money, he's successful, so his desire for money, he has obviously a hidden desire, a passive desire for money, but he doesn't feel, his passion for money. The moment that something is blocking his success, his financial success, whatever other ambition he has, in this moment that something is blocking that, all of a sudden the will gets much more stronger, right? Just try to take away, sometimes somebody's enjoying something and he's not making a whole big deal about it. But just try taking it away from him, all of a sudden at that moment, the person will get a rude awakening that something's being taken away from him, and he's going to start, the desire for the thing will all of a sudden grow much more. So when a person's desire is being blocked, so his power of desire, his power of will is awakened. But now, if he can't get that thing, what is he going to do with the will? So if he knows how to put his power of will in the right places, if he knows how to channel it correctly, he could reach much greater spiritual heights. So for example, he says if somebody is going after physical pleasures and then they're taken away from him, he's being chastised, he's being rebuked, he's being afflicted, it's not going the way he wants. So his will gets stronger, he really wants it, but now at this point he could contemplate and say, listen, hold on a second. I'm having such a great yearning for money. What is the purpose of it? What is the source of everything? Ultimately, the source of everything is Hashem himself. So when a person's will is being blocked, and he's being charged, he's being challenged, so he's able now to invoke a deeper emotion. His power of will, in a certain sense, because it's being blocked, is becoming even stronger, it's becoming charged. And he could now take that will and put it in the right places, serve the Eibishter, to serve Hashem. So basically he explains that this is the idea of Ein ben David ba shetichla pruta min hakis. The reason that the sages, the benefit, so to say, whatever benefit it could be from the fact that a person doesn't have money, so he explains as why, because as long as a person has money, so he's just going, he keeps on going further and further. Nothing is forcing him to stop and to try to find something deeper. The moment he has no money left in his purse, so now he has to start thinking. Now his desire for money gets even stronger, but he has to now figure out what to do. I mean, he's stuck. So now he starts thinking, if he'll get the message, he could start thinking, what's the purpose of money? What's the purpose of life? To serve Hashem. All money comes from Hashem. And why did he create the world? And so on and so forth. He created the world for a higher purpose. So now that his ambition is challenged and therefore is becoming stronger, but it's getting stuck, he's able to channel it in the proper direction to achieve much more. So similarly, he says regarding the coming of Mashiach, that in order for the Jewish people to have their desire towards Hashem, as long as their desires in physical things, and there's nothing that's awakening them to think about placing the desire in Hashem, so Hashem sometimes makes a certain block, there's a pause in the person's ambitions. So now he's forced to take that will. He's not going to remain stagnant. The person is either going here or there. So he's forced to take that will and put it back into, to retrace his steps spiritually, so to say, and to connect to Hashem. So this is the explanation of more of a the level of pshat. But what's interesting is a lot of commentaries discuss this concept, and they say what it means that everybody has to be poor before Mashiach comes. And if people are rich, that's not good for Mashiach to come. People are rich. Do all rich people have to lose their money before Mashiach comes? So there are alternative interpretations. One interpretation actually is very interesting, is the Ben Yehoyada, the Ben Ish Chai, brings in the name of his son. He was, in those days, I guess, they started the time that they made paper currency. Years ago, when you look in the Gemara and the Chumash, so they used gold, silver, they used regular coins. They didn't use paper currency, dollar bills. So basically, he says that when you're going to have pruta means it was actually a silver coin. It was called a pruta. So when they'll stop making actual coins. Instead, they're going to make paper coins. So then this means that the pruta, the money is taken away from the purse. There's no actual money. And today's day and age just has developed much further. Most people don't even deal with hard cash. They deal with cards, or just on their phone. They press, they use some type of app to send money. So basically, he says that when money leaves the purse, so that's a sign of Mashiach's coming. What's the connection? What's the connection between this and that? So spiritually, we could understand the connection a little bit more based on different interpretations that are brought down in other Sfarim. Other sources explain that spiritually, the divine sparks that need to be elevated in the world, which is what the whole process of exile is, in order to lead to the refinement of the sparks. So those sparks are referred to as pruta. Mystically, I don't want to get into the whole discussion, but there's 288 sparks, which are Reish Pei Ches. The word pruta is the first three letters are Reish Pei Tes, which is 289. It's 288 plus 1. And the last two letters, Vav Kei, are connected with the spiritual level of the sparks. So pruta, a coin, represents a spark. In every physical item, there's a spark of holiness that's embedded in that item. And all of these coins, so to say, have to be taken out from the kis. They have to be taken out of the purse, which basically means they have to be, the word kis also comes from the word kisui, concealment. They have to be taken out of the purse that's concealing them, that's blocking them, that's not allowing their connection to godliness to be revealed. So shetichla pruta min hakis, when the fact that there's no coins left in the purse spiritually means that there's no sparks that are left to be elevated. Everything was already elevated to holiness. On a more of a homiletic interpretation, the Yismach Moshe brings down that the word pruta means an individual coin. It's called pruta, also comes from the word prat, which means a detail, individual. So he says like this, pruta min hakis means before Mashiach comes, our focus can't be on our own individual benefit. In order to bring Mashiach, there has to be the kis. He says the purse is a reference for the heart. All the thoughts of a person are concealed in his heart. It's called also In the Talmud, there's a term, kis halev, the pocket of the heart, which the heart is in. So he basically says that before Mashiach comes, which is a little bit in line with that concept we spoke before, a person has to stop thinking about himself. He has to think about the community as a whole. That's the only way we could bring Mashiach is achatichla pruta. Individual coins, pennies, each individual person will stop thinking about just his own benefit and will, take when he prays to Hashem, when he's doing mitzvahs, when he's trying to do his to accomplish whatever he wants to accomplish in the world, it won't be for his personal benefit. It won't just be what gives him physical gratification or spiritual gratification, but instead his purpose will be in order to try to bring about the coming of Mashiach, in order to try to fix the world as a whole, the cloud, the whole world as a whole. This is what's going to bring Mashiach. And I'll just finish off with one last point, that in Tanya, actually, the Alter Rebbe makes a reference to this teaching of our sages. The Alter Rebbe speaks about the importance of giving tzedakah in every situation. And he says at the end of Yigeres HaKodesh Simin Yud, he discusses the fact that even if a person is not obligated to give tzedakah from the letter of the law, but nevertheless, he says that that's what brings Mashiach. And he says that Ein Yisrael Nigolen Elo B'Tzedakah. Our sages say that the Jewish people will be redeemed only through charity, and he interprets that to mean that if a person is giving charity because he has to, there's a requirement according to Torah how much he has to give to charity. So that itself is a very great mitzvah. But what really, the mitzvah of charity that really has the ability to bring Mashiach is the charity that a person gives even when he's exempt halachically. He doesn't have any coins. He connects it with the teaching of our sages. A person doesn't have any coins in his purse, and nevertheless he gives tzedakah. This type of tzedakah, which comes from real self-sacrifice, he doesn't have the money, and halachically he's not obligated to give the money. That is what brings Mashiach. The Rebbe finishes off on this point that it doesn't mean that a person has to reach a point, God forbid, that he doesn't have any money. But on the contrary, a person could be very rich, but a person gives tzedakah not because he says, I have money, so now let me see how much of that money should I allocate to charity. Should I give 10% or should I give 20%? But rather, a person gives tzedakah not because I have money in my purse, I have a certain amount of money and now I have to give money to charity. But even if I wouldn't have money, I would give tzedakah because tzedakah is a mitzvah. Tzedakah is something which brings the redemption. So he's not basing the tzedakah, it's not limited to how much money he has in his purse and making calculations, and if he, based on the amount of money that he has, how much is he required by Jewish law to give to charity. But instead, even if he would have no money, he would still give. And therefore, when he does have the money, he doesn't give bait limited to any specific calculation and any limitation that he sets upon himself, but he gives without any limitation. Hashem should help that we should merit, everybody should be rich, and we should merit the ultimate riches, the coming of Mashiach, speedily in our days. Amen.